technical difficulties. All right, so I just started recording, and welcome everyone to the PAC Northwest RCL meeting. We do this around this time, well, actually we normally do it around August to get you ready for RCL league play. But what we're gonna do tonight is, because I believe there's several ECNL managers on, is we're gonna skip down to Tammy's presentation, because they also utilize her resources to reschedule ECNL meetings. And this is something also RCL managers, you'll be doing as well. So I think that's your screen, Tammy. You see it? Okay.
You're on mute, Tammy.
That's easier to hear me when I unmute myself.
Welcome.
Thank you. And Robin, thank you so much for just putting this meeting together and being proactive. I think all of us are kind of in a weird stage of wondering when games are going to happen, hoping games are going to happen. But with the schedules coming out with the hope of starting games on September 26th, you just kind of saying, okay, let's do it. Let's put it on the calendar. So thank you. And for all the managers that are on this call, thank you for everything that you're going to do this year. I can imagine that this job, as hard as it is just every year, that this one can be even a little bit more complicated because there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. But I know that you guys are all going to do a great job, and we are all in this together to help each other. So at any point, if anyone has questions or concerns, you can always reach out to Robin and myself, and we will do our best to answer your question and make sure that you have the right communication back to your teams. So everyone hopefully had a chance to see in Affinity that schedules were posted from the state, and the start date is September 26th. Robin and I do not know any of the COVID, what they're going to be doing, protocols, away games, anything like that. So if you guys can just refrain from asking those questions, we don't really have the answers as far as what the state is going to say for COVID. So sorry, my little chat thing popped up. So the first thing that you would normally do is that you're going to communicate with the opponent and get any specific time frames that they're looking to play PAC teams. With that, until the state has said, yes, 100% we're going to be playing games that weekend, so September 26th, if we have not gotten clearance a week before that date and we're not going to be playing that date, no games should be rescheduled for that weekend. So September 26th, October 4th is the next weekend. If we have not advanced into phase 3 or received any other word that we for sure are able to play games, none of those games should be rescheduled to a later date. So instead, we will wait to see what the state is going to tell us about those games. If they say, yes, they can be rescheduled, we will do that. There is a chance they could say maybe there's too many and those games will be canceled, then we will go ahead and cancel those games. So just make sure that you're not going and saying, oh, I'm going to try and get these games later because there's a greater chance that you can play those games. Those games cannot be rescheduled until we for sure know when we're going to start playing. Robin, I'm seeing things pop up in the chat, so if I need to go in there and look at it, can you just let me know as well?
Yeah, let me. Can you see the chat though on my screen? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. So once you speak with the opponent, so this is again, once games can happen and there's a conflict. Maybe your coach, a coaching conflict isn't a great reason, but let's just say we can't get a field that weekend. So you're going to communicate with your opponent and say, you know what, we don't have any fields this weekend. We're going to need to find a different date to play. So you would communicate with those coaches, and then you would get ready to submit your game request. So I kind of broke it down just to make it a little bit more simple of the steps that you need to take. So you're gonna submit your game request, and these links are located on the manager resource page, and I emailed them out yesterday to all of you. On the game request form, you're gonna give me as much information as you can. So there's required information, and then in the notes section, if the team we're hosting, remember we only submit home games, the team that we're hosting can only play at 9 a.m. That's what needs to go into the notes. So the notes section is anything additional that I would need to know that would pertain to your game. So step number 2 is to verify. So verify the game request was submitted correctly. And I'm just going to go through these really quick because the next one's going to give you a visual. But when it shows up in white, the game is submitted correctly and I can see it. So you've submitted it correctly. It's on my sheet. I know that that game needs a game time and a location. Your game will turn yellow once I enter in the game time and the location.
There you go. Sorry.
It's okay. And then green, the game has been submitted to the refs, and only in an emergency should that game change. So,
You ready?
Here is the game request form. So although this is last year's form, 2019, it still is the same form this year. So you will see everything that is listed as far as the game date, everything in red is required. I've had some questions about the league and division already. So the league would be the RCL, or it would be State Cup or the ECNL. And then you would put in your division. So that would be division 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll also see State Cup, but that's just for later in the year. You're gonna put your preferred time. If you go back, Robin, your preferred time is just your preference. So if you definitely have to have a morning game and that's the only option your team can play, you're gonna click the morning, and then in the notes, you're gonna say, we can only play at this time. Otherwise, you're just gonna select whatever is appropriate for your request. I will do my best to meet the request, but I cannot always do that with the fields that we have secured. However, I will try my very best to accommodate your team. So you may put in that you want a morning game from 9 to 11:30, and I'm only able to do 12 to 3:30, then I will get as close to the time as I can. So ECNL managers, it will be a little bit different for you on this form. The league, you'll do the ECNL. For the division, you can just put anything in there that doesn't really pertain to you guys as much. And your guys' game times are set just based on the league and hosting. They have to go in a certain order. But I do still need you to go in and enter the game date, the team, and all the information so that it pops up on my sheet, and I know that I do have to schedule those games.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Boom.
So this is what it will look like. So the game request form has these 3 colors on it. So white, again, is that you've entered the information correctly, and you can see here that it doesn't have a game time or a field, so it stays white. It'll turn yellow once I enter in that the game is at 9 o'clock on Starfire 1. So at that point, there could be a slight change if other game requests come in or something happens with the field that I need to make a change. It doesn't happen very often, but if it does, I would always email you that. And then when it turns green, this box is checked, that is blue, and that means it's been sent to the referees to be scheduled, and it should not change unless there's an emergency. So you'll see the preferred time down below. And then I just made the notes of like opponent can only play at 9 a.m. Just giving you another example of what it should look like. Next one.
Is this a time for questions or no?
Sure, you can, yeah.
Oh, hi, Tammy. Oh, I'm not on. Hold on 1 second. So hey, it's Azar. I'm brand new to managing, And if it's green, so the last one, when should we put in this process it into Team Snap is what I was curious about.
You can put it into Team Snap once it goes yellow. It's a great question. You can also notify your opponent of the time and location once it goes yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. It used to take
Okay.
it used to take longer to go to green, but once I have all the games that are submitted on the sheet and all the games have been assigned, I go ahead and submit them to the refs, and so they'll turn green pretty quickly after they turn yellow.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yeah.
This is Karen. I'm also first-time manager, so a couple things. Number one, how do we get in contact with the other team? Where's that information hosted? I've seen our schedule. Do you click on the team or something? How do I know how?
Karen, I'm going to go over that
Okay, great.
on my piece. Yeah, we're going to cover all of that.
Okay, perfect. And then you said it turns white when it's submitted correctly, yellow when it's pending, green when it's scheduled. What color is it when it's incorrect?
It won't be there. There's no color. It just won't be showing on the sheet.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, next. Perfect. So then you're going to confirm the game time and location so I've given you the game time. So I'm saying you're playing at 9 a.m. on Starfire 1. You're going to make sure that that information matches with the game field sheet. So there's two sheets. There's the game requests and the game fields. The colors on the game field sheet do not mean anything. I get this question all year like, wait, what about this color? So I only use them to separate the games, so it's easier for all of us when we're looking at the game fields that we can clearly just see what game, when it starts and when it ends. If something does not match, so it says that you're playing at 9 a.m. on Starfire 1, on the game request form, that's the one we just talked about, that would turn green. And then you go to the game field sheet and it says you're playing at 9 a.m. on Starfire 3, then I need you to email me right away letting me know that it does not match. Because at that point, I've made a mistake on one of the sheets, and so I will need to make sure that I can go in and fix it. And we don't want two teams showing up at the same field. So just make sure that you email me right away. So then once those two things match up, 1 week prior to the game, you're going to check and see. So once it goes green, it's been submitted to the refs. So at any point, but for sure 1 week prior to the game, you're going to check the referee website, which is listed there, and make sure that your game is listed on the site. If you don't see it listed, again, you will email me right away.
And we're going to go over checking the referee website a little later.
And then 24 hours before your game, you'll want to check to see if you have referees assigned. And if you are missing a ref, then you can call or text me, as that would be an emergency situation 24 hours before. And so you can just call or text me so I make sure that I can contact our referee assigner and he can make sure that a referee is showing up. There are U12 and down age-wise. There are times when you don't have 3 refs assigned, and they will do their very best to see if they can get all 3. But there has been in the past, just with shortage of referees, that there is only 2. So that does happen occasionally, but we do our best to make sure all the games get filled. Our referee assigner is amazing at what he does. And so just you guys getting games in, me getting field assigned, and getting him the information as quickly as possible gives us the greater chance of making sure all of our games get filled.
Hey, Tammy.
Yes.
There was a question from Sherry. She's the Geo6 Maroon manager. So let's say I made a mistake on my game request, or if our opponent needs to change after it was submitted, do managers just email you, or is there a different process?
because I did it so many times last year that I want to know if there's a better way.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Well, if it's something really simple that I can fix, that is, whether it's the date or a time, and you just want to send me an email, that's great. It's usually best if you resubmit it and then send me an email just saying, hey, delete this date or whatever it is. When I'm looking at the sheet, I'll see that you submitted the same game twice. So even if you put something in the notes, I would read that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next slide. All right, so this is what the game field sheet looks like. So you can see there's all different colors. Everything in white, we do not have reserved. So the only fields, it'll start off as gray. So you see Starfire number 4 at 10 o'clock is gray all the way to 12. And then Valley Ridge number 3 is gray. That means that we've reserved those fields. We have them reserved, but there's no game that has been scheduled to play there. So if you are looking at the sheet, let's say you have a team that is looking for, oh, is this a possible date that we can play? This would be, maybe they need to change a date or something like that. This would be where you could see that there is a field available. Could we change to that field? So Starfire 3, you'll see the yellow and the blue. That's just differentiating between the 2 games that are going on. So one is at 9, one's at 11, but the colors do not mean anything. It's just to separate the games.
We good on that sheet?
Yep. So I just made a weekly checklist. So you're gonna submit your game request, make sure that it matches the game fields. So time and location match up with those 2 sheets that I showed you. Then you're gonna check the referee site, make sure that the game is listed correctly with the time and location. And then 24 hours before the game, you're gonna check the referee site as well. I check all of these as well. So after I submit all of the games that turn green, I go to the referee site and I also go through them. So just to make sure that they're listed, but just the more eyes that can get on this is the better. And really that's why we ask you to go through the weekly checklist, is just so, I'm thinking everything's making sense in my mind, you're thinking in yours. So the more that we can just get eyes on it, we have less mistakes, and we have, all the teams showing up at the right time, at the right field, and referees for your game. So I just said email me, obviously, if you have anything. If it's an emergency, here's my cell phone. Feel free to call me or text me in an emergency. Please do not text me about game changes or requests. They get lost in text, and so email is always the best way at the fields@pacnorthwestsc.org. Next slide. All right, problem solving and coordinating. So team managers of coaches with multiple teams. So I know Robin's gonna cover this as well, but just please work together. So if your coach has 3 teams, work together to identify conflicts before you request your game times. So I'm putting you in time slots that will work for their home and away games. So again, I'm only scheduling home games, but you're working together, because if your coach has a game at a home game and you're going to be playing at Starfire down south, but then they also have an away game that day in Snohomish, you want to coordinate with the other managers so that your coach is maybe having a game home at 9 and then allowing enough time to get up to the game in Snohomish that afternoon. So again, we are only scheduling and submitting home games, but you'll need to work together. If you're a manager and your coach has multiple teams, just make sure you guys are working together on the schedule. And again, Robin is going over that and giving you some options as far as how to do that. September games. So there's only 1 weekend of games that has to be submitted. And I'm asking if you guys can all just go in and submit those games that you have for the September 26th by the 20th. So the reason that I asked you to do this is because if we don't end up playing games in September, or maybe we don't even play games in October, Well, now a month has gone by and now we have all this material, but maybe you're like, oh, I forgot how to do it. Or so the sooner you guys can start just in the system we've put in place. And if you have any questions, then you can reach out and we can just make sure that we're all ready to go once games are cleared. This definitely has been, we're not booking any fields at Starfire per se, because we don't want to book and then have to cancel. So we're kind of just holding them, knowing what games are going to be happening. But I am envisioning that things are going to, even though we're not scheduling right now, once it's time to schedule and we're cleared, everything's going to happen very quickly. And so I want to make sure that you guys know the system, how you enter games, and if you do have questions, we can answer them beforehand. So once we are playing games, then the entire fall season will be due. Normally it's by September 15th after we get the schedule, so it's very quickly. But obviously for this situation, I'll just send everybody an email saying this is the date that I would need all of your games for the fall to be submitted. Yeah. Please note that you only schedule home games. So the state has given you a date to coordinate with your opponent for home games. You should always try to keep these dates if possible. Otherwise, both opponents must agree to change the date in writing. So it must be through email. It can't be, oh, I talked to him on the phone. We have given you the flexibility to change the dates when you have conflicts, but we still need the games scheduled in advance and conflicts worked out at the beginning of the season. Sorry, this thing little popped up. Okay, just to make sure we have the fields and referees available when your team and coach are available. So changing games, the dates is not something that we recommend. However, sometimes it does have to happen. And so if it does, then we give you the flexibility of doing that. But it just, makes more work for you guys. Sometimes when you have a coach that has multiple teams, they do have to be changed. But in general, and especially because we have directors at every age group, they can always fill in for your coach. So a coaching conflict is not a great reason to change a game. They need to ask a director, or they can ask other coaches if they can fill in, but it's not typically a reason to change a game. We also tell our teams that we're hosting, sometimes they'll say, oh, our coach can't make that time. But a coaching conflict is not a reason to reschedule a game.
Hey, Tammy, a question from one of the ECNL managers. Since ECNL games are set for the season, those games can be changed, but is it a little more challenging to get those games changed since ECNL does all the scheduling?
Yes. The only time those games get changed is when the directors from a visiting club have communicated with our directors on the game changes, and they will submit that to me. Everything that you guys do is in the TGS. Right. Is that right, Robin? TGS. Yeah. And so everything will be posted in there versus the affinity that's ran by the state. So those times are already set, and I will enter those as soon as they're confirmed by your director.
And we'll have a separate training for TGS, use of TGS later, probably, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
good idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, we will. Yeah. I've had it in the back of my mind.
It's pretty simple, I think, but sure. Yeah.
Hey, Tammy, okay. Just a quick question. This is Jason. You had mentioned as far as, not good reasons to change times with coach conflicts and stuff. Is that after, we do our submission, you give us, a time for a field. Are you talking about not changing the times after that point? Or are you talking the initial RCL schedule that has told us what day we're supposed to pick? Does that make sense?
Yep. So if you can keep to the RCL schedule that has been assigned, that is always ideal. Okay. I don't know if you guys see the complete schedule. I do, of all the games. So what they do when they schedule that is they say, okay, PAC is hosting this many home games each weekend. And so it doesn't overload us, especially this year when we have high school girls and boys playing at the same time. They've allotted games so that we have, let's say 25 games on the weekend. Well, if everybody starts changing, now we have 10 on one weekend and 30 on the next. And it's just hard to accommodate the fields when that happens. So if you can keep to the date that is assigned, that is always the best. When it turns yellow, then it really needs to be our game is already scheduled and we can't make any changes. That should be the communication. Of course, we can always go back to the schedule and see if there is a slot that is open to move the game. But I would definitely say once it's gone yellow, that means you have a field and a time. We should not try and change it.
And that makes sense. I mean, once, typically like what we did last year, you validate with the other team availability. And once they say, yep, this is good, and we submit it to you, to me, that's kind of set in stone. It's an act of God to change it at that point. But it was, having a coach that has multiple teams, that's the bigger issue, checking the schedule. We've got home and away games up and down the sound. So we'll work with our coach and figure out how that, without trying to change dates too much. So that helps. Thank you.
Yes. And that is typically when the most changes happen, is when a coach has multiple teams. And I understand that. And I just, the more that you can put in the notes, not the more, but the more direct information you can put in the notes of we must play at this time. If I see that, then when I start to schedule all the games and I know you have to play at 9 a.m. or you can only play at 3 p.m., then I just make sure to schedule those games first.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It was just the guidance as far as how you explained how games are allocated to each club. I didn't realize that, so that's good feedback just to know. So thank you.
Yeah. One more thing is an option to play Friday evenings. I know for the older teams especially, they sometimes like that. So those fields, although they're not listed on Smartsheet, they are always available at Starfire. So if teams like to play on Friday evenings, we certainly can book those games. And then we typically do not schedule anything. We don't have any fields reserved after 5 p.m. So you'll get some teams that say, oh, we can only play at 6 p.m. So the response would be, we only have fields until 5, so we could play the game at 3:30 or 3 o'clock, so that they understand we don't have any fields reserved past that. Of course, if it's the only option, we can go and ask for more fields, but there's an allotted amount that we get and we pay for, and so we want to use those up before we ever go outside of those times to book additional fields.
This is Jason again. What are the hours for Friday as far as field availability? Is it like 6 to 10 or something like that? Or is that not advertised?
No, it's wide open, really. It's just, trying to be reasonable with parents getting home from work and then being able to get their kid to the field. It's really up to you guys as managers. So if you want to start a game, if you think, 5 o'clock and the team's local, and they've agreed to that, then you can do that. But a more reasonable time would probably be 6 or 6:30 for a start time.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Tammy, it's Robin. Real quick, and you might have covered it and I missed it, but if for some reason at the last minute we give up a field, how much is that costing this year?
Well,
I know Starfire charges us.
Yes, we do get charged. You know what? That very rarely happens. I don't think last year that happened at all. So I never had to go to a team and do that. And it really helps just because we do have such great managers. You guys, you do such a fabulous job of just getting games in. It allows me to start working on it and knowing. So I can actually, we released fields last year because we just got games in so early. I could actually say to Starfire, hey, we don't need this space. Can we release it? And then they're able to resell that. And so we actually get money back, which is great.
That's good.
Yes. All right, next slide. What if a conflict comes up after we already scheduled a game? It happens, and we try to avoid it for sure, as I've stressed. But if it does happen, then you just need to communicate with me with an updated field request. So something's been scheduled, the coach has, emergency in their family and can't make the game, you can email me right away. Obviously, if it's that coming weekend, we need to get it canceled. But a great way for you guys, when I talked about the fields and the gray areas, is that for you guys to come up with a solution and say, hey, I noticed this was open and they're available. Could we move it to that date in time? So we try to limit these as much as possible for obvious reasons that I've stated. But in case of less than 2 weeks notice of a game change, the home and away team may be charged a cancellation fee. So that is, and the refs. And Robin, you kind of asked that question. So again, we did not have to do any of that last year, but let's just hope that is the same case for this year. And then if you need to change your game, please check I just went over that. So just talking about the gray areas and saying, can we move this to this because I see that it's open? Do not submit another game request. So don't submit another game request without telling me that the other game needs to be canceled, because I'll just see the request and book the game and not know that the other game has been canceled. So anytime there's a change when your game is yellow or green, you need to send me an email and let me know that what game needs to be deleted. The system is designed to give team managers the flexibility to choose game ties that work for your team and your coach when necessary. We want to do everything to make your job easier, but this also requires all of us working hard to lock in your schedules as early as possible. So we are a team. Please let us know how we can help you, and we're all in this together. So I am definitely on your guys' side. Like I said, you guys just do so much work to make your teams run smoothly. And so I want to make sure that I can meet all of your requests, and I will do the best that I can to make sure that I do that. So I definitely will open it up to questions. Obviously, like I said, we don't know when games are going to start, but once we get the green light, we'll just be ready to go and start scheduling away. Any questions?
So just to clarify about the season starts for week by week. So our first game is scheduled the weekend of the 26th. So if we don't hear back from the state by the 19th, then we just supposed to assume and let our teams know that week 1 games aren't going to happen. So this Saturday is the cutoff for week 1, correct?
We haven't gotten clear communication on that. In speaking with Leighton, our director, our technical director, he's really going to try and push that the kids get contact training before we go straight into games. So in a perfect world for him, he thought that 2 weeks would be the time frame that he would want to see the kids at practice having contact before we're actually going into games. So that's what he's going to push for. Will that happen? I don't know. The other RCL clubs and directors might want to just start the next week. So it's really hard to know. He felt bad. He didn't have a clear answer for me to give you guys on that. But I guess the communication will just have to come from me regarding what that looks like. So they're hoping something this week. I don't know if you guys saw the return to play letter from Washington State Youth Soccer, but they are asking for kind of an exception in this phase 2 for outdoor sports to return to play. If that comes out, then I think, at that point I would be sending an email to all of you guys, just making sure we're all on the same page that it looks like games are a go. Please schedule for September 26th. If that doesn't happen, I will still send an email saying whatever date that they decide, I will go ahead and say, we've received word today that the games this weekend will not happen. So that'll be my job to communicate to all of you guys, whether it's yes, we're playing this weekend or no, we're not.
This is Lorian, the manager for ECNL B04. We don't have any word yet about ECNL, right? I know that the Northwest Conference is not posted yet. The schedule isn't posted yet. I've been looking at TGS, or actually at the ECNL site, sorry. Any word on when things might get posted?
You said the boys, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the boys' schedule actually was posted, but then the first game was supposed to be on the 13th. And so all the directors are now working on an alternative schedule that has not been posted. So I actually just emailed the girls and boys, Pedro, yesterday regarding that. So he will be in touch as soon as they have anything confirmed.
So for, I'm girls 08, so this is our first year at ECNL. So we have a schedule in Affinity, and then we're also supposed to be looking at TGS.
No. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You said what team?
Girls 2008.
Okay,
so we have a,
the only people looking at TGS are ECNL managers.
Well, the
Okay, I'm an E-
U13s
I'm
and
an
U14s
EC
are playing in league.
yeah, I'm an ECNL manager for girls 08, and we have an Affinity schedule. So in
In the
Affinity,
fall.
we have a,
Yeah, so you guys will be playing in the fall, so U13 and U14. So,
I mean, I would
you-
say,
yeah,
honestly,
I noticed,
that's
so
what
I noticed
that's what
in
we did last
Affinity-
year.
I noticed in Affinity, we have a schedule that goes through, like what you're saying, Jeff, that goes through the fall. And then I think I see I tried to get into TGS. I didn't even know about that website until it was just mentioned. But I just got in there and I see now that there's some January games listed for the girls. So it's through the fall, you're saying, Jeff, that we look at Affinity?
Hi, Abigail, it's Robin. I would say yes. Because the U13 and U14s, they play in the fall in RCL. And so I want you, and if the U14 RCL managers, oh, that's you, Jeff. You guys stay on the call because you'll need to know some of the RCL ins and outs since you're playing in league in the fall. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely familiar with RCL. I guess I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything that we should be doing for ECNL for these girls.
Yeah,
Not
you're
yet.
yeah, and on the ECNL side of things, everything has just, kind of been halted because of the shift in the high school schedule for the girls. And so they're just still trying to work on the schedule locally just to make sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. There will be a separate meeting once the schedule does come out for all the ECNL managers.
All right. So if there aren't any other questions.
One quick question.
One more question?
If I may, yes.
Hi, Carl.
Hi. Three Rivers typically likes to combine their games on a weekend because they're traveling from over the mountains. Is that a reasonable excuse to reschedule a game?
Yes, absolutely. And again, just make a note, if they do want to play it, early in the morning so they can head back over on Sunday, then that's great. And same if they're coming over here on Saturday, that they would want a later game, whatever that looks like. But yes, that definitely is a reason to change dates with opponents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and typically, I don't know what it's going to look like for COVID protocol, but typically any of the games that you're going to go over the mountains for either direction, we try and just get those scheduled early. So Carl, you bring up a great point that if that's a game late on your schedule, it might be something that you do want to see with your opponent if you're going there, or if they're coming here, if we can get it scheduled to an earlier date. That's a great point.
Thank you. Thank you.
The other thing is that on the game request form, there's a mod, are you a mod field? And everybody U12 and down, you are mod. So you want to check that because you guys need, you have different modifications for your field. So it just helps me to make sure I put you on the right field. Any other questions for fields?
I just have one quick question. It's Megan. This is my first year. I'm a manager for Girls 11 Blue. And just to confirm, on our home games, we reach out to the opponent to see what time slot works best for them. And then we submit it to you. Is that correct?
So there's different ways that managers do it. You can submit the date that is listed And once I get back to you with the time and the field, you can reach out to your opponent and you can say, this is what it is. Some managers do that. Other managers, you know what, I'm going to call, I'm going to make sure that this time works before they submit it to me. Some managers find in the younger age groups, there's not as many conflicts, but if you're playing a team that has multiple coaches, then you're saying, okay, here's the date and here's the time and location of the game, and then they're going to say, oh, that doesn't work. So typically, but like I said, some managers just say, oh, here we go, and they just send it to them. Some reach out and say, is there any conflict on this date? I'm going to go ahead and submit for a time. Does that help you?
And we'll go over a little more of that on the RCL piece.
Yeah. And do you tell them, Robin, to do it first? Reach out to them first?
Once you've given the green light, or if the game is yellow, I have them reach out. I prefer they go through Affinity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, if that opponent cannot accept that time, they will ask for to reschedule through Affinity as well. I like it all through Affinity because it keeps a record of the communication between the managers.
Perfect. Okay, so
clubs,
that's a great question, Megan. And whatever Robin says you're supposed to do, I'm on board with that. So that's good.
Wait, so sorry, it's Azar again. Can someone just recap what I just heard there?
So I'm going to go
I was
over.
confused about who Robin was directing her comments to.
So for RCL managers, there's a process that you'll follow when you need to confirm a game time, date, location with your opponent. And I'm going to show you that once we get to my portion of the presentation. Is that kind of what the question was?
Yeah, I think so. But what I think I just heard is schedule it with Tammy and then communicate through Affinity. Or did I hear the contra of that?
Yeah, so let's just, however Robin says to communicate through Affinity, let's go ahead and say that you're going to reach out to your opponent before you've sent me anything, you're going to reach out and say, this is our date for our,
Gotcha.
that we're hosting you. Is there any conflicts, for time? And then they'll email back, nope, we're good. And so you're going to submit the request to me. If they say, oh, my coach has a game at 5 in Snohomish, can we please play at 11 o'clock or earlier? Then you're going to send that information to me. I think that'll be the best way.
I would suggest if you have a coach with a lot of multiple teams, that you're mainly informing the other manager. You said, hey, we're scheduled on October 4th, and I'm requesting a morning game.
Correct.
Be a little bit more assertive. If you have some constraints based on the other managers, the other PAC managers that you're working with, and you've already said, I'm going to try to get a morning game, we're a home team, then you need to, be a little bit more bossy, I would say, and say.
But we'll get to all that.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, if you reach out to an opponent and their coach has let's say your coach only has one team, so you're really flexible on the date, but your opponent, they say, oh, our coach has 3 teams, so if we could play at 9 a.m., that would be best. Then you would submit that to me saying they'd like to play at 9. If you're a manager and your coach has 3 teams and you are requesting, you have 1 home game, then yes, absolutely, that should take precedence of, we want to play the home game at this time, and then you're going to reach out to those managers or to the other teams saying, we're playing home at this time, and the other managers can fill in for that. But I would say the home coach for sure for us, if you have your coach has multiple teams, the home game definitely should take precedence. Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
I'm sorry, I had lousy connection.
Okay, I think we're good.
I didn't hear what you said, yeah.
Let's transition on to the other piece so I don't have you guys on the phone for
Can I,
ever.
Robin, just jump in? If ECNL managers are going to drop off, I just want to share a life-saving...
Don't drop off yet, because I have something to tell the ECNL managers from Malia.
So I just had, hopefully this is just a quick yes, no answer for Tammy. So once we get our requests and everything's done, are we the ones that are updating the time and fields in Affinity, or are you the one that updates those?
Yes, and I'll show you how to do that as well.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Robin.
Yeah. So Jeff, can I share
Yeah.
one piece of good news from Aaliyah? So I definitely want Abigail and Jeff to stay on the call. All the RCL, ECNL managers can drop off if they wish. But Malia would like me to share with you, she has not heard anything from the Nike store at all, because managers get to go once a quarter and shop at the Nike employee store, you get 40% off. Once she hears that it's open again for us, she will send out an email with all the details about going to the store. So she wanted me to make sure that I shared that with all of you, because she's gotten questions regarding it. It's exciting stuff.
Yeehaw.
So Jeff, that's all that I had. She just wanted me to make sure that
Okay.
she's aware. But as soon as Nike gets back to her, she will send out an email to the managers on how they get access to the store.
Okay, will you enable screen sharing real quick? I want to just share a life-saving tip that I figured out at some point in the past.
So what I do, pause it, mine?
There was one more question that should we be expecting to hear from managers for our away games?
From the opposing managers?
Yeah, from opposing managers, and yeah, yep.
I can guarantee you some are not going to be as on it as
Just
we are.
stop share on the bottom. There you go.
All right, go Jeff.
And then
Okay, host disabled participant screen sharing.
That happened to you too, huh?
Okay, well, I can just talk you through it. So on the practice schedule, I'm sure you've all had the experience of trying to find where's my team. Ryan said I have 3 this week. I can't find them, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very difficult sheet to read. And what I've started doing is I just select the entire list or all the cells, and I paste it into Excel. And then when it's in Excel, I can quickly do a Control F or find and go find all of my, I can find every G07E in the whole sheet. So if it's a whole month, you can easily find every single one of your practices for the month. You can change the color, make it a bright orange or something. And it's just a really easy way to, if your practices are not in the same slot every week, you just copy Ryan's workbook over to Excel and do the find feature in Excel. That's what I was going to demo, but that's all I got.
That's all you got. Can you guys see my screen again?
Not yet.
Yes? No?
No.
Oh. Jeff, I hope you didn't mess me up.
I never had control. No, it wasn't me.
Can you see it now?
No.
Oh.
Are you the host, Robin?
Yeah.
just share screen on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you can pick like your PowerPoint presentation to share. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Got
Maybe
it.
it's just a little slow. All right, so let's get started on the other stuff. So all the other ECNL managers can drop off except for Jeff and Abigail, if they wish. Tammy, I don't know if you're gonna stay on or not, or it's up to you. All right, so I mentioned the Nike store. And then I think we quickly touched base on the presentation. It'll be available tomorrow. I'll put it on the manager resource page, and I'll also probably send it to you just because I'm anal like that. And then I always forget something in the presentation. So look for me to send you additional information via email, because I always remember these last minute tidbits of information that is good to share with everyone. So, all right. So I know we reviewed this back in the summer for new managers entering jersey numbers, but I just want to stress it again because when you print out your game day roster, you want to make sure your players' uniform numbers show up on the roster. And so I'm sure several of you know how to do this already, but in Affinity, when you log into your My Account and you click on your teams, I hope you all remember how to do that. If not, I can show you. And then once you click on the team information at the bottom of your roster, you see that Edit Player Team Info button. Once you click on that, it will look like this. And you just want to enter in the home jersey numbers. That makes sense? It's all right. And can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Robin.
Okay, good.
We have,
I'm paranoid now.
Can I ask a question? When you put those numbers in, is that saved for forever, or do you have to do that every week?
Nope, it saves forever. So once you put the numbers in, and then make sure you save your changes, because I know every year some managers forget to save, and then they wonder why the numbers don't show up on their rosters. So you do it once and you're good. All right, now here's the exciting stuff. And I don't know if you guys can switch back and forth. So if you want to log into your teams through your My Account in Affinity, you're more than welcome to do so. Because I'm a hands-on person, so I can totally understand if you need to do that. But how to view your schedule. So as you all know, some of you have figured out that the game schedules are in Affinity. And so what you want to do, again, is when you log into your My Account screen, you want to click the Teams tab. That's right here on the menu bar in the middle of that screen. And then you'll want to click the Tournament tab. Tournament and game schedule. Huh?
I have nothing in my teams. It's showing there's no team information.
Ah, I'm going to have to look at your profile. Will you shoot me an email so I can make sure? Because you should have something there.
Okay, I will. I will after the meeting.
Yeah, you should have something there.
Okay, thanks, Robin.
And then you'll notice a link that says schedule. And I'm sorry, it's kind of blurry. But you'll notice a link that says schedules and game scoring. When you click on that, you'll see a schedule come up of all the teams that your team will be playing. And if you just want to see your team schedule, you'll click on Pac Northwest 02 Maroon, and it'll show you the schedule for the season, just your teams. And here's something that's kind of handy. If you click on the opposing team name down here, or anywhere on any of your opponents, their contact information will come up, the manager and the coach. It's kind of handy to have when you need to get a hold of them. All right, there's another way you can access your game schedule, and I kind of prefer this way. So when I'm in My Account in Affinity, I go ahead and I go to the drop-down menu, and you want to select the game schedules in the drop-down, and it just gives you a totally different view, which I think is more useful, to be honest with you. And when you get to the tournament game schedule view, just make sure you select the 2020-2021 RCL tournament. They call it a tournament, even though we know it's a season. And then you want to select your team, select over here, and then you simply press search, and it'll bring up your team schedules again. So this is just a different way of viewing it. Now remember during the call where Tammy said once your game schedules are in yellow, it's good to communicate it to the other manager. So once that happens, once they're in yellow, you'll want to, let me see if I'm going ahead of myself. Actually, I am going ahead of myself. So this is what this screen looks like. And then this is also going to be where you're going to print your roster from. Normally it's available on Wednesdays before your game. But you'll notice the button will not be there if you look on a Monday or a Tuesday. Any questions on this page whatsoever?
Some of the teams changed their rosters after Wednesday, FYI.
Yeah, that's why I always do it like, my son normally plays on Sundays, so I would print it on Friday, but I would never do it the night before, because I've heard horror stories where someone's printer doesn't work, there's a technical issue, you know, something weird kind of happens, so you just want to avoid that. This is optional,
Hey,
and I know some
Robin.
managers do this, is they will do a Google Sheet, Google Docs, or a OneDrive sheet where they list all their coaches' games, to try and avoid conflicts, or they'll start a group me with the managers in their age group. The thing with the live document, I mean, one person has to take the lead to update it. And so I'm not sure if that's something that, I mean, if you're really gung-ho and want to do this with your other age group managers, you know, be my guest. But some managers do use this. All right, entering game fields. And I see there's chats going on, but unfortunately, I'm not that multifaceted to do chats and go through the slides at the same time.
I think it's mostly people. I think we noticed this on the last manager meeting too. It's mostly people commenting how different your affinity is compared to what we see. So I know some people were commenting on that last time we met too.
Yes.
I just think you obviously, because of your role, have a lot more permission.
Well, I did have a manager this afternoon go in, and she was able to see this view. So I'll have to double check that. Maybe I'll have, Abby, I'll have you log in and see if I can get you to this view, because this is what she saw. So I'm not sure, or
Yeah,
maybe.
I think I'm okay. I think it was.
You can see it too? Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
strange.
no, it was Anna that was saying that in the chat. I think that was the only chat that was really coming up.
Okay, I'll follow up with Anna then. So this field, like I said before, once Tammy has your game in yellow on her smart sheet that it's good to go, what you can do once it's been confirmed is this is where you're going to enter in the time of the game. You hit this box here, it'll pull up all the fields. So you'll select the appropriate field that you'll be playing on, and then make sure you hit save. Some folks will go in and enter in the time in the field and they forget to hit save, and then there's nothing entered in for the game. So just make sure you hit that save button. And then once you hit save, this box here, you see where there's the game ID number, it'll turn green and it'll show that the game has been saved. Okay. And if you make a change, let's say you go through Tammy, your game has to get rescheduled. You're going to notice that there's a reschedule button. So then once your game, you see this game right here, strikers, sharpshooters, funny names, huh? You click on the reschedule button. It's really easy to do that, and a pop-up window will appear. So you'll enter in the reschedule information. If Tammy says, okay, you're going to play at this time instead, you're going to go from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and you're going to change to this field, you'll enter in all the reschedule information. And then what you want to do is hit the send request button. And what that does is go to your opponent. Does that make sense? And so once you do that, it'll show reschedule is in progress in red right here. And then the opposing team, that manager and coach will receive an auto-generated email asking them to go in and confirm the game reschedule. So that means that manager will have to go in to Affinity, view the reschedule, and then confirm that they're okay with the reschedule. And that's going to look like this. So it's really simple. They can see all the information. They can either accept the request, or if what you sent them still doesn't work, they can send you an alternate request. And then it's up to you, your coach, that opposing coach and manager to come up with some sort of solution. So you with me thus far? Are we all good?
Yep.
All right, just making sure. I'm sure it's riveting. Let's see. So accepting the request is going to lock in the date and time and field. And like I said before, if they send an alternate request, if they offer up an alternative date or time or field, that's when you're going to want to have a conversation with your coach to see if they're willing to change again. So if they do send back an alternative date, an alternate date, it comes back to you. You're going to receive an email. You're going to have to log in, and then you're going to have to confirm that you accept the alternate date and time. And then once everyone has agreed on the reschedule, you'll see right here on your, you see right here in red, you've accepted the reschedule request. The schedule of this game has been changed. And this is why I prefer managers do this through Affinity, because I've seen some strange things over the years, and this keeps a record of everything. Because when you do things through email, sometimes I didn't see it, it went to my junk, it got lost. So this right here will keep a record for you. So if you need to go back and refer to it, it's right here. Home and away to-do lists. I think Tammy she covered some of this, like the ref website, which I'm going to show you in a second to make sure refs have been assigned to your game. One thing that you want to do 96 hours prior to your home game is, and this is in the RCL rules, is you have to provide adequate directions to the opposing team manager for the venue, the game time, and the location. So even though you've done all the work in Affinity and they can see it in Affinity, you want to send them an email saying, hey, just want to confirm, here's our game, here are the details. I kind of put an example down here that you can see. And so you want to make sure you do it 96 hours prior to the game, and then request that they confirm that they've received the email, or even put a receipt request on it. Make sure you update TeamSnap with any new details if necessary. And then again, make sure you receive a confirmation email back from the opposing manager. And then you want to print 2 copies of your roster, and I'll explain that in a couple minutes.
Could I just jump in real quick? So Robin was mentioning about giving the opponent instructions. Most people know where Starfire is, but I would have a request that
still do it.
You still do it, and I would like everyone to make sure that the other clubs know that PAC is not benefiting from the charge for parking. This is a requirement of the city of Tequila, and the money does not go to PAC. So I usually say something like, the city of Tequila requires Starfire to charge $5 for parking if you don't have a membership, or something like that.
Good point.
So that they know that we're not the ones collecting the money for that.
All right. Oops. So your away game to-do list, again, update TeamSnap with any new details if necessary. Make sure you've got the email from the opposing manager with all the game details. And then again, I put print 2 copies of your roster. The other thing is what I used to do as a manager, I think what most managers do, I ask the other team, if we're the away team, I tell them what we're wearing, because the home team is the one that is supposed to change their colors. So if we're in maroon and the team that we're playing is in maroon, it gives them a chance to have that team change their colors. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. Just making sure you guys are still awake. Somebody
us in the chat, what is our away kit and what is our home kit?
Jeff, you want to take that one? Are you there, Jeff? I will find out. To be honest with
Are you
you,
talking to me?
I do not know. Oh, you're back.
My internet's pretty sketchy, so sorry.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I
What
didn't
is
hear-
our
if you-
home and away kit?
Oh, I don't think there's anything set. Leave it up to just ask your coach if they care. I agree with Robin though. I'll usually ask the opponent, if they're the away team, I'll just ask them what color will you be wearing, and then I'll pick.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Jason. One reminder to families, will actually players, make sure they bring all their jerseys to games, whether you're home or away.
Yes.
Regardless, we've at tournaments, at games, we've had issues. Sometimes the home team can't change jersey, even though it's a responsibility. So it's just a lot easier. Just pack your kit in your bag for any game.
Thank you, Jason, for that. That's a good point.
And then Robin, can teams play in the blue this year, even though it's a black practice jersey?
Can teams play in the blue?
Yeah, even though it's designated as the practice jersey.
I don't see an issue with that. Do you, Jeff? I mean, I don't know what Ye on High thinks, but has that ever been discussed, Jeff? Like in board meeting or anything? Well, I'm going to say I don't think it matters. Because just like Jason said, you want your kids to bring all their jerseys because you never know. I mean, you always want to be prepared if the home team for some reason can't change into a different jersey. I'd rather you be prepared than not. How about that for an answer?
Flexibility works.
Yes. The day of home and away. We're really going to push digital cards this year. Number one, because I can't give you laminated cards. Number two, probably better to use digital cards right now anyway, since they're on your phone, and your rosters will have the players' pictures on them. So I'm sure the refs will be just going by your roster because they can identify your player and their number that's on the game day roster. So that makes it a lot easier for all of us. You're going to hand the ref 2 copies of your printed roster. And then after the game, make sure, oh, it cut it off here. Make sure you get a copy of the game roster back from the ref and make sure all the information is entered in correctly. The correct score, if there was any cards given, that the correct player was given the card, and make sure he has signed your roster because you don't want to get home, enter in the game information, and it's not correct. Are we squared? Are we good on that? All right, so.
Hey, Robin, real quick, this is Jason. One thing on the digital cards, I learned the hard way. Load the digital cards before you get into an area that does not have cell service. So on your phone,
yes.
I've got Android. I'm assuming iPhone works the same way. You can load and put the cards in cache. So just basically access the website when you have cell service and leave it on your phone. And then you can just flip through it when you're at the field. That's the one disadvantage, and it's not a huge disadvantage as long as you're not in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Through rivers. So just a heads up.
And I think that's one reason, that's another reason why the league pushed to have the player pictures on the rosters as well, just in case there was a hiccup with the digital player cards, you have a backup. So referee check. Remember in Tammy's timeline, she had that you want to make sure, I think, what did she say, 4 or 5 days before, maybe 3 days before, you want to make sure that the game that you have been assigned has referees. So here's the website that you're going to go to. I am not sure that it's changed. I hope it has because it's kind of an eyesore. But anyway, when you go to the website, you're going to want to click on information. And then in the drop down, you're going to want to click on match inquiry. and then put in your team name. Right here, there's a little box that it's going to let you put in your team name, and then hit return on your keyboard. And you'll see all the matches for that day. But actually, if you search by your team, it'll pull up just your team. And then you'll be able to see if there have been refs scheduled. So for example, you'll notice that all for this game here, you have your ref, you have your AR1, and you have your AR2. It's as easy as that. And then if you notice that a refs aren't scheduled, let's say you have no ref scheduled, it's like the night before your game, definitely call Tammy, as she said, and then I'll give you Richard Meeks's number as well. He's our executive director for the South King County Reffing Association. If you notice there's 2 ARs and there's not a center ref, you're definitely going to want to make a phone call as well. If there's only 1 AR, you're definitely going to want to make a phone call. So, and I know, Jeff, I haven't heard of anything. Normally, Richard will send out an email if there's a shortage of refs. I have not heard if there is, but for some games, you may have 1 AR and 1 ref, and I'm sure us, the returning managers, we've seen that a time or two, so don't be surprised if that's all that you have for a game. They try for the olders, the high schoolers, to get 3 refs. They try their best, but if there is a shortage of refs, you might just have 1 AR and 1 ref. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to recap there, the most important thing is that your game appears on the South King County site so that they know that they need to assign refs to the game.
Right.
And then, yeah, the night before you could just text Richard and say, hey, my game, 9 a.m., Starfire number 2. He still doesn't have a center ref.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes it's the same day, like it's Saturday at noon and you still don't have a ref. And so, yeah, want to get on those within that 24 hours of game time.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions on
And
the
is that
ref?
just for home games that you're responsible to do that, or is that home and away?
Home.
Thank you.
Just your home games.
Hey, Robin, this is Pamela.
Hey, Pamela.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
And you?
I was just curious. I want to update the player photos in Affinity. I have the older from last year versions in there. What is the best way to send you or be able to update the photos?
Oh, I have that on. I think I have that on a different list. I'll tell you how to do that.
Okay.
Because there's a couple. Yeah, I have that come in.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So on this website, that right here, there's an evaluation tab. And so you can report if the ref or ARs do not show through this tab. You can report poor officiating and good officiating. I know Richard Meeks would like both. I mean, you don't have to do this after every game. This is an optional thing. But if there is a ref that was great at officiating a game, he would love to hear about it, especially if it's a young ref. Because that would be good for them to help their self-esteem, because sometimes our younger refs, it's kind of a challenge for them depending on what parents ref a game. You can share this website with your parents too, so they can go, and I would caution you though, but he welcomes parents to go to the evaluation tab and offer feedback as well.
Hey Robin, that's Jason. That seems like a scary idea for that last bullet point.
I never shared it with my parents, to be honest with you.
For our team, we did it through the coach and the team manager. And if somebody was passionate about their feedback, I would personally run it through the team manager and the coach, just so it's not emotional updates.
Yeah, and team managers, there's an option for you to do it through Affinity as well. You don't have to do it through this website. You can go ahead and do it through Affinity. I was more the proponent. I was more of good officiating, especially for the youngers, because we want to keep those refs coming back every year. So I would put, I normally erred on the positive side, because if that was my kid out there, you know, I want to know if he's doing a great job. So Richard Meeks, as I said, he's our executive director of our South King County Referee Association, and he's normally on these meetings in person, but he has a very busy schedule. So the only thing he really talks about is what I just shared with you on the reffing website, but also if you need to get a hold of him, this is his information as well, his email and his phone number. I do know his brother Ryan is in our club as well. He's our manager of our 06 ECNL. I tend to ask him questions as well because he's a referee and he's very knowledgeable as well. And I don't know if he's on the call, but he is a wealth of information when it comes to refereeing. All right, printing your game rosters. This is exciting. So when you go into your My Account in Affinity, and again, you're going to want to click on the Teams tab, and then that Tournament Schedule Apps tab, and you'll see the schedule and game scoring link. When you click on that, it'll bring up this screen right here, where again, it shows all the games. And then that's when you see the print roster button. And once you just click on that, and then you're going to want to print 2 copies and bring to the game. What I would do is the night before, I would print out my rosters and I'd put them on the front seat of my car. Just because if I'm in a hurry in the morning, that's, you know, I just don't want to forget my rosters. But that way I know it's done, and that's one less thing I have to think about in the morning. So any questions on this slide at all?
Hey, this is Jason. One other thing I did.
Oh, Jason, real quick, you see on the screen where it says rate performance?
Oh, yeah.
That's, I believe, where you enter in the ref information if you want to give feedback.
No, that's good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
The roster part, I would print a digital copy and then upload it to your cloud, you know, provider of choice, Dropbox, Google Sheets, whatever, just so, you know, if it's in a pinch, I'm a bit paranoid. So that way you got an electronic copy too. And if you're co-managing with anybody, then your other team manager or a parent would have access to the digital doc if you had to pull over and print it a FedEx Kinko's or something like that. So just as a backup, if anybody else is paranoid about that when they're driving to Spokane or Three Rivers or something, just an idea.
And you can pull it up on your phone too through the digital card.
Cool, I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. We normally the league really doesn't. You can pull it up. I don't know if a ref will accept it. I just know right now digital cards the league says can be accepted. I don't know if they're accepting electronic rosters, but that is like your plan C, I guess, if you need one, if you're in a pinch, but you can't pull it up on your phone. All right, entering scores. So again, from My Account, same thing, teams, tournament and schedule apps, schedules and game scoring. You'll see a box here. So you click on that empty box for your team. And oops, and then it gives you, don't be alarmed, a box with a lot of information is gonna come up, your game stat entry box. And then some people, make sure you don't, any pop-up blockers are disabled because you could have challenges getting this box to come up. But what you wanna do, this is where you're gonna enter in the stats for your game, okay? And so both managers have to enter in the same exact information. And so you'll notice on, I have to put on my glasses, believe it or not. You'll notice on the home game, you'll want to enter in your score. If there are any cards, you're going to click on the drop down and then you can select which player had a card and you'll be prompted to put in what type and the reason. And here are the reasons right here. And also you'll want to put in the visitor I know it sounds strange, you're going to want to put in their information as well, because what happens is that other manager is going to be tasked with putting in this information because you both have to match, if that makes sense. We just want to make sure both teams are putting in the same information. If the score was, example, like 5-1, and instead the score was put in as 5-0, the next day when you look at your team, if you go back to schedules, there'll be a red CC there, meaning the score is being contested. It's actually not being contested, it's just alerting you that there's something wrong. So you'll want to go back in and make sure the information that you put in is correct. Does that make sense?
Real quick for new managers, I would also suggest that they look at the refs when they hand them back their the game sheet. Make sure that they actually put down something that's actually in the fields. Sometimes you get a ref that's been around for a while and they use a shorthand that doesn't match up. And if you're a new manager, you don't understand, what is this actually going to be? And so
yeah,
just make sure that they actually have, and I did it last year. They went, oh yeah, it's actually this now. You're right, and they just scratched it out, and that way it alleviates the problem ahead of time.
And then make sure they sign the form as well. The ref has to sign the form. So if for some reason you do have to contest the game or escalate some issue with it, the ref has signed off on that roster. Actually, I think that's it. Let me check my other notes, because I always come up with other notes. Pamela, you had a picture about player cards, right? I mean, a question about the pictures?
Yeah.
In Affinity. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So what I would like everybody to do is go look at your teams, make sure all of your players have a picture. If they don't, you will be able to upload it yourself. You just click on the little icon and then you'll be able to, it'll prompt you to browse for the picture to upload. Make sure it's in color and it's a headshot. No hats, no sunglasses, no tiaras. We've seen that before. Just in their uniform, in their jersey, just from the shoulders up. If you want to update a picture that's already in there, I have to delete it first. So send me an email if you have several players or a player on your team that you want to update their picture, because we have some players that look like they're 7 and they're now 12. So if you want to put in a current picture, let me know, I'll delete it. That way you can upload the updated picture. And keep in mind, this is the picture that will all show on your game day roster.
Thanks, Robin.
You're welcome.
Robin, I did have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So in RCL, or in Affinity, excuse me, we can put in the numbers. On the TGS website, I sent you an email. One of our players has no number. It was listed as 0. So we can't update that, right?
You should be able to update it. Let me check your status in TGS, because you should have gotten the link, because I put you as an admin for your team, just like you're an admin for your team in Affinity. There's one thing with TGS I will say to you and Jeff, because I think most of the ECNL managers dropped off. They updated their platform this year, so there's been really quirky things happening. So I, did the painstaking process of putting in uniform or jersey numbers, and most of them disappeared. So you'll notice kind of weird things happening, but they are definitely trying to work those bugs out.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
It's just been kind of a crazy year for everybody. And like I said before, game day rosters, try not to wait till the last minute to print them out. Probably do it the night before, just in case you run into any issues or any technical issues. That's happened to me before, where I waited the morning of, and for some reason Affinity was down. Let's see what else here. Oh, your game scores, make sure you enter them. This is coming from the league. They want them entered in within 24 hours of match conclusion. They could fine a team $25 if you don't enter in your scores. Here's the reason why. It's not to be mean or anything, is that they want to ensure that players and coaches that had a disciplinary issue, like a yellow or red card, are contacted in a timely manner before their next match. So they can just confirm and verify, is this what happened? Because every week there is a meeting where directors go over cards given during a game. So does that make sense? Why they want you to put it in within 24 hours?
And I'll just throw in that if you have your digital player cards still up on your phone at the end of the game, it's really easy to just enter the score before you even get in your car
Yeah.
to drive home.
I'm going to be resending out that link as well for the digital player cards.
Yeah.
Because it has
Also,
a lot more information in there.
If I could suggest a sort of a team rule. I normally go over this during TCB, but we didn't really have the typical TCB for my team. But you can't, as a manager, you don't know if somebody has changed their status from going to not going for this weekend's game. And so I have a rule on my team that once you put in your status, if you change from yes to no or no to yes or something to maybe, that they have to also tell me in person or text me, because you might check your roster on Tuesday and say, oh, we got 3 subs. And then 2 people go in and chase, well, whoops, sorry, we can't go after all. So we just changed our status to not going. I strongly recommend you lay down that rule for your team, and make sure your coach will back you up on it, because it can really cause problems, especially with people who have commitment issues or kind of flaky or whatnot.
It's a good idea.
And like I said before, I will be putting this on the manager resource site. I will also be sending this out. If I think of anything else, because there's so much information, we could go on and on and on, but I will send you an email. I'm going to send out the digital cards link again. I will send out
Robin,
a couple other
sorry.
links that I think might be helpful for you, but don't hesitate to ask me any questions regarding the scheduling and all that, the scheduling of games. That's Tammy. I get a lot of questions regarding scheduling. I don't know her process well enough to answer any of those questions, and she's probably your best resource for that. All the other information I just went over with you, go ahead and ask me any questions that you have about that. And that someone else had a question?
Oh, Robin, just real quick, can you go back to where the entering in scores box is? I missed that. I wasn't paying attention. Sorry.
So when you go into your My Account in Affinity, you click on My Account, you'll notice the Teams tab in the middle of the page. And then once you click on that, you'll see Tournament and Schedule apps. And then you'll want to go to the Schedules and Game Scoring link.
Okay.
And then once you go that, your team will come up. And then, actually, I'm lying. That's printing rosters. Your team will come up and you'll see an empty score box. You want to click on that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then this giant screen will come up on your computer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Robin, sorry, it's Azar again. So
No
2
problem.
questions. I'll start with the easy one. I'm a new manager, so I just have lots of questions.
Oh, you're fine.
So the first one is, I heard that we don't have to print out and laminate player cards. Is that true?
You know, well, number one, I haven't printed them because obviously there's things going on.
And then that was the second part of that first question, which is Robin normally provides them.
Yes, that's me. And so I did have a conversation with someone at Washington Youth Soccer, and they were talking about that, if we're just not going to use laminated cards this year and just use the digital. So I will follow up with my contact there to see if they've made a decision on that.
Okay.
Or they might do that for State Cup or something like that.
Yeah.
If we have State Cup, but probably
Yeah.
not
And I might
necessary
just
for
print them out
league.
anyway, just so I have them. So if they say yes, let's go ahead and give the option of using laminated cards, they'll be ready to go at some point.
Okay. Thank you. And then that clears that up for me. And then my second question, our first quote unquote scheduled game is on next Saturday or whatever the weekend is. And it's an away game. So am I supposed to hear something from the opposing manager on scheduling the away game, or kind of sit and wait, or how does that all work?
I would reach out.
They're supposed to reach out to you, but if you haven't heard anything, I would probably reach out to them. Remember how you can go to your game schedule and click on that opposing team and the coach and manager information come up?
Yep.
So I'd reach out to both, the coach and manager in the same email and just say, hey, we're scheduled to have a game on this date. It's kind of quirky right now because I haven't really heard
Is it in
any
King County?
official, unless Jeff knows, but haven't heard any official notice of.
Is it in King County, or where is the game?
I'm not familiar with the team Black Hills. Is that King County?
Oh, that's Olympia. So they might be in phase 3. So
yeah.
But again, we would want to have some practices under our belt before we go down there. So
and the other thing to keep in mind, because I was a new manager once, and when I first go around as a manager, I kind of didn't do things in a timely manner because I was learning. So keep that in mind as well.
Their manager
Give
might
myself
be
some grace is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Give myself some grace. Got it. Okay.
So they might need some grace as well.
Yeah, I would reach out right away and just ask, hey, are you in phase 3? Are you practicing as a team yet? You could ask a few questions like that. And if they're still the same as us, then, chances are pretty slim at this point. I would think that they're going to be playing.
3.
Google said what?
Phase 3.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Lucky you, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I know our club, I don't know about other clubs, but we, Tammy and I have a couple meetings throughout the year. I know other clubs where managers receive no instruction or given no direction whatsoever. And I've had managers from other clubs at games ask me how we, Robin, how do I do this? So that's pretty telling. And so just keep that in mind as well. If you haven't heard anything about a game schedule and your games next weekend, they may be figuring it out themselves on how to do it because there's no one there to guide them.
Hey, Robin, this is Jason. I got a dumb question. Do we need to be in phase 3 to play? So does PAC need to be in phase 3 to go play a phase 3 team? Or if we're in phase 2 and the team's in phase 3, we're still allowed to play? Does that make sense?
I'm going to have Jeff take that because he's been in more meetings than I have.
Okay.
Yeah, so, the idea would be, obviously, wherever the game is going to be played, they would have to have permission to be able to, play 11 aside or 9 aside or whatever age group you are. I think it's still an open issue if, they'll even let parents watch on the sideline, or the parents might have to stay in their car or something like that. But that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. So if the hosting team is in phase 3, we still have the issue on our side, if we're still in phase 2, that if we haven't yet trained as a team, head to head type thing, then we're probably gonna push to, move that game out a few weeks and reschedule for a Sunday in October or November, something like that.
So would our director provide that guidance, or like for girls, Malia, boys, Pedro, etc., or who would make that call? I'm looking at Azar's situation where he's got to go play a phase 3 team. I'm just wondering who he can go get the yay or nay, just so he can pass it along to his counterpart for Black Hills?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would start with the coach and ask the coach what he has heard, and then if the coach doesn't know, we could go to our whoever the coach's director is, and find out. I mean, obviously, if we know today that we're not going to play 10 days in the future, might as well just, you know, get that dealt with and get it rescheduled or push it out or somehow get it moved off of that date. But there definitely is still a lot of, you know, huddling and conversing both within our club and with our counterpart clubs to deal with all these, you know, what about this, what about that type thing. So there's may not be an answer yet.
I thought that Tammy said that we weren't supposed to push or reschedule games like week 1 until later. So basically we just don't play and then we try to figure it out down the road. We weren't supposed to try to reschedule for later dates until.
I mean, I guess I'm using last year's guidance for that. And that's just always my
I just don't want to get,
inclination
we're getting too sensitive information now. So I just want to make sure we clarify and say, we just don't play and then we figure it out down the road.
Yeah, at this point, I know that, or if the league is going to just go ahead and push everybody's games out to make it a little easier.
It's just making it hard because I have a home game supposedly on the first week, and so I'm supposed to be trying to schedule with Watcom, and this whole thing sounds like we're not even sure how a lot of things are going to be handled and if they're going to be handled, and so yeah, we're 10 days out and we're trying to do things, but we don't have all the information we need.
I mean, I would say if there's a game, if you have a home game on the first weekend, go reach out to your opponent and go request a field time. There's no harm in doing that. And then whether or not it's just an outright cancel or a reschedule to a later date, we can figure that out down the road. But for now, I would say go make contact with your opponent, see what they have for game time preferences, and then go request a game time from Tammy.
So you're saying go through the motions?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The process, I would say, not the motions.
Okay, yeah, the process.
Trust the process, rather.
Trust the process. And I know it's kind of frustrating for everyone. And I do know that there's a lot of discussion going on, but there's a lot of questions, but not a lot of answers. So this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. So I just try to be patient and understanding. And I'm sure things will get worked out.
Hey, Robin, Jason, one request, if there's a way to pass this up to the directors, I guess for you and Jeff. I mean, I'm totally cool reaching out to other clubs to schedule stuff, but it would be helpful too if the club's doing it. So right or wrong, my expectation is PAC is talking to Black Hills and discussing it at a club level versus the team managers identifying policy and stuff like that. Not that we are, but you know what I mean? It'd be nice to have somebody providing some guidance. So if there's a way just to ask for that, I don't know how it works. I know we're kind of breaking into new territory here, but it would definitely help the team managers, I think, from that perspective, if that makes sense.
I think the league is talking to all the clubs. I'd be surprised if they weren't, to kind of set some sort of guidelines. Jeff, what are your 2 cents on that?
I don't see the directors keeping track of, you know, which clubs were playing the first weekend and reaching out to them. And I think I would not count on that. You know, maybe if Pedro has, you know, a special close friendship or relationship with the guy at Eastside, whoever that is, you know, he might do that for Eastside, but expecting the directors to call around to all the clubs and set up some kind of protocol when they may or may not even have a game with us on that first weekend is unlikely, I would say. I understand why it would be nice, but I think we're going to be really understanding of what our opponents give us. If they say, hey, we're Whatcom, we've been playing head to head for 3 weeks, we're totally fine, driving down for a game, and that's great. Or they might say, hey, we're Crossfire, we're still doing pods just like you, and you just have the conversation, set expectations, and say, hey, our club said we should go ahead and schedule it for now. There's a good chance it's probably not going to happen on that date, but let's go get a field time and see how it shakes out.
I think everyone will be understanding for the most part. I would really be surprised if someone couldn't comprehend, with everything that's going on.
I mean, especially if we're clear about where we're at and our club and King County and, what we're allowed to do. You just tell them up front, look, we're not even training as a team yet. So
sorry, this is Sharon comment. I'm really confused about the direction here. So I totally understand what you're saying about look at the schedule, reach out to the other team, submit the request, make the preparations, and get all the ducks in a row as if play can continue. So that part I'm totally dialed in with. The piece that I'm confused about is, are we or are we not as a club, let's say for home games, making a decision, or will King or whatever county it is actually allow it? Like, can we play at Starfire? Or is PAC saying if your team wants to travel up to Whatcom, they can? Like, I'm trying to understand what the guidance is about whether we are actually either allowed by the state to play or not, or county or whichever legislative body. But I'm just
so there's two layers, I would say. There's the health and governing authorities permitting competitive games to happen. So that obviously must be in place. And then in addition to that, our leadership, our directors need to be comfortable that our players can be ready for a competitive game. So both of those need to be true. And so the thing we don't know right now today is how much lead time. Is it, if we can get in 3 practices next week, maybe it's okay to play a game next weekend. We just don't know all those details.
Sure. I mean, the spirit of my question is less about whether the team will, hasn't played together before and might get out there and get killed. That part I'm not as concerned about. I'm more trying to get to the root of like, what is allowed? What are we allowed to do?
Hey, Jeff, did you see the email from Washington Youth Soccer and the letter that was sent to Washington Youth Soccer, or that we sent to the governor, trying maybe that'll answer some of the questions. I don't know if you've read it yet.
Was it like a week or 2 ago? I don't remember how long ago it was.
No, it came out today. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, no. If it's today, no, I haven't seen that.
And I'd love to add 2 cents, which is, ultimately with kids being cooped up since March, getting them out there running and playing to me is a victory. Whether they're ready to take on competitive, if they win or not, I don't even care. I hope others,
Yes. Well, let me be as clear as I can possibly be. It's not, can we win the game or not? It's just like, it came up more in the context of tournaments. Like, when we were talking about maybe doing a tournament like Bigfoot, and we were saying, well, like, we don't want to go play in a tournament and have 4 games in a weekend without having had some training time together, head-to-head, full contact, because that's not good for the kids. So it's definitely not, can we win the game and notch a victory? That's totally not it at all. But it's just, is it best for the kids that they, you know, just show up at a field having never played contact since March?
But there was
That makes sense?
Yep.
And what also may help, Sherry, I got an email from Washington Youth Soccer, and there was an update to the return to play guidelines, and then they posted a letter that was submitted to Governor Inslee, and why they're asking for a phase 2 modification on playing soccer. So if you scroll through the letter, that might.
I know this isn't
answer
probably
some
the
of your
right venue for
questions.
this.
I'm not sure.
I know this probably isn't the right venue for this, and we don't have all the information yet, but not all counties are in phase 2. While some are in phase 3, some of the opponents on the schedule are still in phase 1. So it'd be really useful, Jeff, seeing as it sounds like you're on the board, if there would be some club direction about who we are and who we aren't going to play, regardless of how competitive we're going to be or how much we want to see the kids.
Who's still in phase 1?
Well, the Three Rivers Soccer Club, Benton County, is still in phase 1.
Oh, I see. Okay. Does anybody on the call have a Three Rivers game the first weekend?
Yeah, we do.
Are we home or away?
We're home. Three Rivers is coming to us, and I just got a word he's requesting to change the date.
To later, obviously.
Yeah.
I would grant that request.
Yeah.
I guess, but once again, aren't we supposed to just say we're just going to put a pin? We're not supposed to change actual dates yet, according to Tammy. We're supposed to just to wait and see.
Yeah, cancel those games. So I'm not sure we're supposed to be rescheduling.
Yeah, we just have to say we just got to put a placeholder and see if we can't reschedule if they allow it.
Hey, Jeff, you want to follow up with Tammy and confirm?
Okay. I mean, to me, it
Because
doesn't it doesn't make a lot of sense to just cancel the game. To me. But, like, why wouldn't we just reschedule? But whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could try.
Mm-hmm.
Were there
One other thing, let me just throw this out for folks on the call too, is it's much easier. Your life will be easier if you don't let a game that you know is going to be changed, don't let that game come and go in Affinity. So pretend we're not in this uncertain mode of should I reschedule or should I cancel? But like, let's say we're moving into October and we're all playing and everyone's happy. And then you have a game, let's say on October 23rd, and your opponent says, hey, we need to reschedule. And everyone's like, okay, good. And you just let the game sit there. And then October 23rd comes and goes. You have to go request from the state that they manually unlock that game so that you can then reschedule it. So my advice would be, again, once we get an answer on whether or not we're rescheduling games because of COVID phasing or whatever, but that don't let the game time come and go in Affinity. Just push it out, like push it out to December 25th at 12 a.m. You know, and just say, hey, let's do a reschedule right now on October 21st. Let's do a reschedule. We'll say the game's on December 25th. We'll find a new time that works for all of us down the road. We'll figure it out. Just keep pushing the game out into the future, basically. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Jeff, with all respect, Tammy told us not to do that for the September 26th game.
Did you not just hear my caveat? I said, like, once we're into
Just
the...
right now, it's, I understand.
That's why I said, Jeff, you probably want to follow up with Tammy because she has her process and we don't want to wreak havoc with whatever process she has.
Yeah, I'm speaking in normal times, the way Affinity works. So
Jeff, that's a good tip because I screwed that up last year with RCL or
yeah,
Three Rivers at the end of the season, and that was a nightmare. So it's a good,
right.
in a normal world, that's definitely a good tip. Thank you.
Yep.
So Robin, just one last thing at Cesar again. So
Hey, Azar.
I'm gonna follow up. I'm just gonna follow up with David, is what I'm hearing, my coach, about next Saturday's game. That's away, so he can follow up with Ryan, so Ryan can talk to Leighton instead
Yeah,
of
I would
Leighton.
just do that.
Anything? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I would just do that. Any other questions regarding game day rosters, entering scores, anything like that?
I have a question. Is it possible to get, I know right now PAC's official policies that we're not allowed to do guest players, but it'd be nice to know the process if if we needed to get guest players, what the process would be. Because right now, last I heard, we weren't going to do it, but once again, things change. So, and how to do that?
Like guest players, as far as
It's like let's say hypothetically, like Carl Maroon, it was like the 04 Maroon, I'm the blue. Carl would come to me and say, "Hey, Mike, I need 2 players," and I go, "Oh, okay." Well, when I go to the coach and they figure it out and we give the process like that.
Yeah.
But right now I have, but if they need, if they need more than I have to have a competitive roster, I'm going to need to go try to find 05s, to get, to fill up enough players to, have subs.
So just to clarify for the sake of terminology, what you've just described, I would characterize as player pass, not guest player.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
So
guest player, like, no, we can't have people outside the club.
Okay, yeah, so player pass.
Yeah, player pass is within the club. And to be honest, right now, I've not heard any appetite at the state level or I just don't even know what, I don't think they're going to want us doing that. So,
okay, that's that just a good thing to know. So if we don't have enough players, then if I don't have enough players to fill the team, then we have to just try to push the game then at that point because parents aren't feeling comfortable, or especially in the.
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to get back to the question of should we reschedule or what should we do?
Okay.
I mean, as the COVID guy for the club, I have a question in my own mind of like, okay, so, I mean, we've had 6 players in the club test positive at various points. So what does that look like when a player has tested positive? So don't know. Right now, when we're in the pods, it's easy and, we have a clear protocol, but when we start going head to head, full team training, are we just going to quarantine the team and just tell our opponent, hey, we had a positive test on our team and we're not going to play you tomorrow?
And what if what if that coach has multiple teams? Are all teams then having to quarantine?
I would doubt that. That we have not contemplated that protocol. I mean, that's part of the reason why the coach is doing the distance.
Well, I'm talking about if we go in your scenario to full team practices, actually, getting some, inter team scrimmages going on somebody tests positive, that coaches 3 teams in one day, or all 3 teams going to have to quarantine then. I guess that's something the club needs to think about.
This is not an official answer, but I would say based on my understanding of everything, the answer to that would be no.
Okay.
But again, we haven't really mapped out all those scenarios. Right now, I could say, in today's world and today's protocols, the coach is fine to coach the other teams.
Hey, you guys, I don't mean to be rude, but I need to run. Jeff, do you want me to keep this going or?
No, I probably
think we're
should go
done.
too. Awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks,
Again,
guys.
email me, text me if you have any questions.
Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for the help. Have a good evening.